Assalamualaikum everyone. Thank you for coming to this meeting, dear attendees. We shall proceed with the meeting now.
Okay, thank you, our secretary, Miss Arifah. So for today, we would like to discuss about the new clients that we receive the request to review their internal control over sales and trade receivable system and recommend improvement for their company. Their company, which is EU Klinik Sdn Bhd, is an established distributor of imported medical equipment and machineries. So, before we go further, I would like to ask all of you about this new client, whether we should accept or reject this client to review their internal control system.
Okay, well, I think I agree to take this company as our clients because I believe the company will minimize their fraud and misstatement if we have a well-planned schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In my opinion, we should accept this company because they have a very strong financial strength. It is important because the client is a good fit for the auditing firm from an integrity, reputation, and industry-focused perspective. However, we should read and analyze the perspective of our client's financial statements to assess the possibility of business failure. Significant doubt of going concern increase audit risk as it is correlated with a larger probability of fraudulent financial reporting. If the business failure increase the risk of our client will be unable to pay for our audit services. Next, we also inquire to some of management regarding these matters. I believe the prospective client, if I adopt different accounting policies or practices, I will propose this change for our client. It will be meaningful for me to note whether the prospective client is willing to adopt such other policies or practices.
Yes, I also agree we can accept Usurin Sdn Bhd because in my opinion, the nature of business of this company is just normal type of business. They only sell and buy inventory as the other business does.
Yes, we can accept this client because their financial stress is still considerable because even their profit sales are decreasing, but they still manage to pay for our service.
Okay, thank you for all for the response. So, because our senior auditor, which is Miss Fatehah, give her opinion to accept this company, I would like to ask Miss Fatehah, why do you think that we need to accept this new client based on your experience in auditing other companies before?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, based on my previous experience, for internal control system, we need to consider this company ability to avoid from fraud and misstatement, also manage and control their risk. So as for internal control, we need to relate to the component of internal control system and for information technology and environment control. So as for me, I won't be a problem for me to accept for this client because this company still can fix their decline in sales and profit with several solutions and with a well-planned schedule of work.
Okay, thank you for your explanation, Miss Senior Auditor. So, based on response from all of you, I would like to decide that we will accept this client to review their internal control system. Next is I would like to ask our junior auditor, which is Miss Husna, as a person that's very expert in this industry. For your opinion, what we need to consider and understand about this client industry to perform our audit work?
So for this type of business, this company import the medical equipment and machineries. So we need to know how their worker or staff record their transaction for the equipment to this company import. Then we also need to know about their target market. to import their equipment. The company need to provide us the complete document or evidence, so it just gives us better understanding about their company. So with that information, we will know whether this company can achieve their objectives or not.
Thank you, Miss Junior Auditor. So, we settle about the acceptance of this client, and from the explanation from our Junior Auditor, we can understand a little bit about this client industry. Next is about the engagement letter. I would like to ask our secretary, Miss Arifah, about the engagement letter. So, how do we issue the engagement letter?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So when we talk about engagement letter, it's really important because it outlines the fee structure, responsibilities and obligations of the firm and the client. Without it, each party can be in legal limbo. The purpose we send to our client because it helps us to reduce the risk. This means when we are using engagement letters, it can help reduce professional liability insurance and many more. If insurance require them, then engagement letters must reduce liability and risk of doing business. That makes it prudent to have engagement letter templates that our practice uses when onboarding new clients. It can allow us to practice to grow while limiting exposure to potential litigations. Example of things that I want to include in the engagement letters are our identifications, scope of services, period of engagement, fee structures, and responsibilities. For example, in most engagements, the clients need to be responsible for specific actions and to provide certain information or records. We need to be specific with what the client's responsibilities and state what information are relying on the client for in order to fulfill the service. Next, I would like to talk about documentations of internal control. Effective documentation procedures resulting in a minimum of efficiency controls can give small business a competitive advantage. So I will prepare and store in hard copy format and electronic media using Audit software. Okay, example of documents that are needed for internal controls of documentations are the organization's QMS policy, descriptions of QMS scope, detailed explanations of QMS objective, and many more. That's all.
Okay, thank you to our secretary, Miss Arifah, for the completed explanation about the engagement letter that we need to be considered for this client. So, Mr. Iskandar, how about our planning and strategy for this client?
Okay, thank you for asking, Mr. Chairman. So, as I mentioned just now about our well-planned schedule, so before we start to audit this client, we better set the timing for auditing and mention it to the company as they can prepare their documents needed to be audited after they have closed their accounting records. So, I think it is better for us to audit this company 30 days after they close the accounting records, because between the time we can plan well to audit this company as to avoid clash in time between their time and our time. So why am I saying this is because we want to give a better schedule among our auditors and avoid pooling of work that will cause difficulty for our auditors to complete the assignment on time. With this well-planned timing, I can guarantee that our auditors will audit this company without any misstatement. Maybe it is not 100% there will be no fraud or misstatement, but at least they can maximize their effort to present their accounting reports and minimize the fraud and material misstatement. So from here, we can use a few approaches in auditing such substantive procedure, which are designed to generate evidence that an auditor can use to support the assertion that there are no material misstatements in an entity's financial records in terms of completeness, validity, and accuracy. So next is balance sheet approach, which justify by the idea that a risk-based approach to auditing financial statements relevant to CAT and ACCA qualification papers is preferable. So the profit or loss figure reported for the accounting period will not be materially misstated if the relevant management assertion for all balance sheet, which is statement of financial position accounts, are tested and verified. And lastly is system-based audit approach, which necessitates auditor assessing the effectiveness of an entity's internal controls and then directing substantive procedures primarily to those areas where it is believed that system objective will not be met. So that is our plan to audit this company. Then I will pass this meeting back to the chairman.
Alright. Thank you, Mr. Vice President, which is Mr. Iskandar, for the explanation about the planning and strategy. So, I hope that we all can make a proper planning to review this client internal control so we can perform our audit work very well. Okay. For Mr. Vice President again, how about the progress to review this company internal control? What we need to consider in internal control system?
Okay, thank you again for asking, Mr. Amir Farki. So our progress about this company is we are focusing about their internal control system. So it can be defined as the action taken by the board or and management to manage risk and increase the likelihood that established goals will be achieved, which stated in Statement of Risk Management and Internal Control by Bursa Malaysia 2012. In a more recent corporate governance 2017, more effective governance is suggested to accomplish goals. So this system can manage risk and reduce likelihood of fraud. So there are a few components to be considered in this system, which are control environment, risk assessment, control activities, information and communication, and lastly is monitoring. So that is what will be considered in auditing this company. And I believe our senior and junior auditor, Ms. Fatia and Ms. Husna, have their progress too about this company. So I will pass this meeting to them.
Okay, for the questionnaire, we have 4 components, as we can see in slide. The first component is controlling the environment. So there is 5 questions that we will ask to the client about the environment control. Next, component risk assessment. There is also 5 questions that we will ask to the client. So I will pass to Ms. Husna for another 2 components.
Okay. For 2 component more is the third is control activity, and the last component is information and communication.
Alright. Okay. Thank you to our Vice Presidents, Mr. Iskandar, and our Senior and Junior Auditor, Ms. Fatihah and Ms. Husna, for the explanation about the progress of main part of our audit work, which is internal control system. Now, we already arrived at the end of our discussion for today. So I would like to ask about the outcome for the audit work for this client internal control system.
Okay, so we have done auditing these clients, which give us maybe a new experience to a few of our staff, which we are dealing with medical company industry. So we have checked their internal control system, and yet we prepared the flowchart of their internal control system. So I will continue this meeting with pass it to Ms. Fatia and Ms. Husna again as our auditors to explain more detail about the flowchart.
Thank you, Mr. Iskandar. So the slide show is the flowchart of the company. All customer order for the purchase of medical machineries are confirmed by a simple email. For the sales department, where sales representative will make 3 copies of the sale order. The second of third copy of sale order are forwarded to the inventory control department. Then inventory control department clerk pick the copy of the sale order from sales department. For the more explanation, I will pass to Husna.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. So another copy of the sales order will be sent to the billing department for further process. In the billing department, the cashier made a 3 copy of the sale invoice based on the sale order sent before. The original copies of the sale invoice will be forwarded to the account receivable department. Lastly, sale invoice together with the sales summary will be filled in the account receivable department by date.
Okay, thank you to our senior and junior auditor for the explanation about the outcome from the reviewing this client internal control system.
So I think that's all for our discussion today. There is any questions from the others? If there is no questions, so that's all for our discussion today. Thank you all for attending. The next meeting will be informed later.
Okay, thank you for your time and your cooperation in this meeting. I hereby adjourn this meeting until the next date. Meeting dismissed.